Good afternoon, everyone. You're all very welcome to today's special council meeting. I would also like to welcome John Griffin, head of NI wastewater infrastructure, and everybody else from the different organisations. You're all very welcome here today to discuss this very important piece of work that needs to be done. Can I ask Karen now if she will take the attendance, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And through you to all members of Derry City and Strabane District Council, you're hereby summoned to attend the special meeting of Derry City and Strabane District Council in the Council Chamber on Wednesday, the 1st of May at 2 p.m. And I'll take the register. Alderman Chelsea Cook.
Here.
Alderman Darren Guy.
Here.
Alderman Derek Hussey.
Right.
Alderman Keith Kerrigan. Alderman Nairi McMorris. Here. Alderman Julie Middleton. Okay, no problem. Alderman Janice Montgomery. Okay. Alderman Gary Wilkinson.
He's also working.
Okay. Councillor Jason Barr. Councillor Lillian Barr.
Yeah.
Councillor Raymond Barr. Councillor Paul Boggs.
Apologies.
Apologies. Councillor John Boyle.
Here.
Councillor Amanda Clark.
Sure.
Councillor Shauna Cusack. Councillor Caitlin Deaney.
And sure.
Councillor Caroline Devine.
Sure.
Councillor Gary Donnelly. Councillor Alex Duffy.
Sure.
Councillor Sandra Duffy.
Apologies.
Apologies. Councillor Rory Farrell. Councillor Sean Fleming.
I'm Sean.
Councillor Paul Gallagher. Councillor Sean Harkin. Councillor Brian Hart.
Apologies.
Apologies. Councillor Conor Heaney.
Sure.
Councillor Aisling Hutton.
Sure.
Councillor Christopher Jackson.
Sure.
Councillor Fergal Leonard.
And sure.
Councillor Patricia Logue.
Sure.
Councillor Catherine McDade. Councillor Emma McGinley.
Sure.
Councillor Rory McHugh.
Apologies.
Councillor Sean Mooney. Councillor Patrick Murphy.
Sure.
Councillor Declan Norris. Councillor Antino Fergal.
Sure.
Councillor Martin Riley. Councillor Brian Tierney. Please. Okay. And Councillor Grayson Lewis.
Sure.
Thank you.
I now want to read the broadcasting statement. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with our protocol. If you are seated in the lower public seating media areas, it is possible that the recording cameras will capture your image, and this will result in the possibility that your image will become part of the broadcast. By entering the council chamber and using the press or lower seating areas, you are consenting to being filmed and consenting to the use and storage of those images for broadcasting or training purposes, and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. If you wish to avoid this, you should move to the upper public gallery. A copy of the Council's privacy notice may be found on the Council's website at www.derrystrabane.com. Can I now ask, is there any declarations of members' interests? No? Going on the chairperson's business, and I have had two requests. One from Councillor Sean Harkin, who I believe is not here yet, and one from Christopher Jackson. So I'll bring you on, Christopher.
Good, Mayor. Mayor, this is, and thanks for your indulgence in this. There was a request. We've been notified that there's an opportunity for a meeting with Minister Eamon Ryan in relation to the A5 and 2 cross-border corridor, and we understand that there's a meeting due to take place next week where each council are expected to have a nomination for attendance at that meeting and a bio to be presented. So, and I know there won't be an opportunity between now and the 7th of May now for us to formally nominate somebody, so other than this meeting. So I want to propose that we nominate Councillor Brian Hart to attend, to represent this council on that A5N2 meeting with Minister Ryan.
Thank you. Connor,
Second that, just.
anyone else want to come on that issue? No, not at the minute. Okay, we'll move on now, and I would like to ask John if he would present the presentation now. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it going on then? Thank you very much, Lady Mayor, for inviting me to come and make a presentation on Foyle Street. Foyle Street presentation today is as a result of ageing infrastructure that's been in place since. Better? Thank you. Presentation for Foyle Street today is a result of the ageing infrastructure that Northern Ireland Water currently has in the street. So just to recap on what the scheme involves and why Northern Ireland Water needs to undertake the work on Foyle Street. Next slide, please. Our existing infrastructure dates back to the 1920s, and it's currently requiring regular maintenance, including extensive desilting. NI Water is currently returning negative responses for planning applications due to network capacity issues in the area, as well as throughout the city. And the scheme in Foyle Street is to take the existing combined sewer, and a combined sewer has foul and storm in it, and to separate those two out into two separate pipelines, one foul, one storm. And while we're there, we will replace the existing water main, which dates back to around about the 1920s, 1930s as well. The intention is that when we're finished, the infrastructure that Northern Ireland Water has at Foyle Street will be fully upgraded in this stretch. Next slide, please. So the key challenges that we have, there's a myriad of challenges working in a city centre environment. With any groundworks, we have ground conditions, and the depth the sewers are going to be at, we have extensive shoring that needs to be completed. We have extensive underground services that we need to maintain, shore up and keep live. Traffic phasing and traffic management is a massive priority on this project. We've also got public interfaces, which requires us to have everything all fully, all of our works completed behind closed off area. We have to maintain our existing network. So we have to overpump sewage flows while we're doing it. And then as this section of the foil is tidal, we have groundwater and tidal ingress that we also have to manage. So massive challenges for us to complete in Foyle Street. Next slide, please. So a lot of work has gone into planning the scheme. We are laying 3 new pipes, and there's over 50 connections to local properties. And to do this in the safest possible way, we need to close Foyle Street to through traffic. And we will carry out the work in phases so that we can accommodate deliveries to businesses. I want to stress that pedestrian access will be maintained throughout all phases of the work. Fundamental to this plan is obtaining the use of Foyle Street car park and reconfiguring the area to house bus stands so that TransLink services can be maintained while Foyle Street is closed. I'm delighted to say that the licence for the car park was granted to Northern Ireland Water this week, allowing us to make a firm award for the work to Macará-based contractor BSG. Our current programme is to start the pipeline work from Foyle Street by closing it in July 2024 for approximately 1 year. And you will see the different phases of this work. Foyle Street will remain open during phases 1 and 4. But during phases 2 and 3, at least half of the street will be available for deliveries. I'll talk more about that shortly. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, facilities for bus movements is integral to the project proceeding, and the first piece of work that BSG will carry out. In line with the transfer of the licence, the car park will be closed to the public and the area will be reconfigured as shown. There will be 6 bus stands along with 3 waiting bays for buses. Buses will access the temporary stands from the Foyle embankment and will exit onto Whittaker Street. Part of the car park will be fenced off and will be used to house the contractor's compound. That's up in the top left-hand corner. Next slide, please. And that is just a view showing where the buses will exit out onto Whittaker Street from the car park. Next slide, please. So just a few more images to show why a full road closure is required to complete this work. Next slide, please. Our existing sewer is egg-shaped brick in construction, and all the different lateral connections are shown in this slide to properties along Foyle Street. On top of that, we also have overlaid existing services such as gas, telecoms, NIE. An extremely challenging urban site to be doing work in. Next slide, please. When you're laying 3 pipelines and constructing the relevant manholes, you cannot do that without large machinery. And therefore, to allow them to operate safely, we need to have the full width of the road in order to be able to carry out that duty. Next slide, please. So this slide is a bird's eye view or an overview of phase 2 works. And Foyle Street will first be closed from the Water Street end. It shows you the contractor beginning to complete the works, covering the first 50% of the excavation and installation that we need to complete. Next slide, please. The working area will be fenced off and it will roughly go up half the length of the street. There will be hoardings on both sides and the access will be through gates for the contractor's vehicles only. Next slide, please. The remaining, some of the next slides will just convey the work that will be taking place inside the hoarding. So not only will we have our diggers, but we'll be storing pipes that will need to be installed, the rings for the manholes and the lids. So there will be equipment having to be stored inside that. I want to also highlight, and I'll mention it again later on, that we have put the contractors' logos on the hoardings there. We are welcoming local businesses to put advertisements on it for them, and we would welcome that. And we have absolutely no problem with that occurring. Next slide, please. And next. This slide shows that during this phase 2, deliveries to Foyle Street will be via a manned barrier off Shipquay Place, where we will have a logistics supervisor managing the movement in and out. So that's the management of deliveries to and from the businesses. The logistics supervisor is fully trained in traffic management. And that's one of the stipulations that we put in with the contract. Next slide, please. This shows you the barrier just outside the Gainsborough Bar. Next slide, please. Similarly, during phases 3A and 3B, the working area will be fenced off from Shipquay Place, and deliveries will be made to Foyle Street via a manned barrier at the Water Street end. Next slide, please. And again, the next few images just give an idea of the working setup that we will be using on these two phases of the construction. Next slide, please. Again, highlighting the quantum of heavy machinery that's required, the excavation, and BSG's compound. Next slide, please. This is a view looking towards Water Street, and it highlights the area that will be available for deliveries. And you can also see that there's a taxi rank marked out there as well. Next slide, please. As stated, provision is made for taxis, and as always, access for emergency vehicles will be maintained at all times. That's a given on our projects. Next slide, please. The barriers will be manned so that the contractor is fully in control of the movements. So when a delivery comes in, we'll be able to get it unloaded and then be able to get the vehicle out as quickly as possible. Next slide, please. So this is where we currently are. Our license with the council was issued to NI Water last week on the 24th of April, and it's only in the last week that the remaining licenses have been agreed. And as stated previously, this has allowed for the award of the final contract to BSG from Macará. So contract award has been completed, and we are now entering into the enabling works for the temporary bus facility and the closure of Foyle Street car park. We intend to still be on target to moving on the Water Street crossing, phase 1 in July 2024, and then moving into the closure and the commencement of works in Foyle Street in July 24. And it's still the intention to have everything completed by July 2025, with the reinstatement of the car park by the end of September 2025. Next slide, please. This is a very busy slide, but it is an overview of some of the stakeholder engagement that has taken place to date. Although we have been engaged with local businesses for quite a while now, we couldn't issue any information publicly until we were in receipt of the licenses to use the car park, as without them, the project was unable to proceed. Following the contract award, we have just recently issued an update to all local businesses this morning, and also to the wider need and timings of the scheme. As you can see from the slide, we've had extensive engagement with TransLink to develop and agree their proposals. Without TransLink's buy-in, this project wouldn't be going anywhere. And also there's been a lot of liaison with this council and with the Department for Communities over the licenses. We've also had to do a lot of liaising with other utilities, and one of the things that we've been asking those utilities is if they have any planned upgrades of their infrastructure in Foyle Street. And to date, we've had a negative response to that. So unless something was to change when NI Water finishes in Foyle Street, the likelihood of someone else coming in and digging it up has been mitigated as much as we can. I can't say that it won't happen, but we've been trying to prevent that from occurring. We did dedicate briefings to local businesses in the city centre initiative offices back in October of last year to provide them with information and to gather their needs on their day-to-day operations. And we issue questionnaires to them following that briefing, and The responses from those questionnaires have been factored into the proposals that NI Water is carrying out. And likewise, we have been doing a lot of liaising with Visit Derry, with roads, keeping all of our stakeholders up to date. And finally, on the bottom of the slide, we're liaising with yourselves, with other sections within the council, roads, Department for Community, Historic Environment Division, a plethora of public bodies, and that will continue. We have been discussing with local taxi companies, and we are aware of private coach hire companies that come into the area, and we have been made them aware of the project as well through our contacts with Visit Derry. And we will also be informing the public now that we've got contract award. So this is just an overview of the scheme. And although we have engaged local businesses, as I said, we couldn't put anything out until we had all of the licenses in place. Next slide, please. You'll be glad to know this is the last one. And finally, just to summarise, how we will endeavour to minimise the impact while the essential works in Foyle Street isn't going. We've created a temporary bus park facility, so buses will be maintained and footfall to Foyle Street can be maintained during the construction. We're replacing all of our infrastructure at the same time, water and sewerage. We've phased construction to facilitate deliveries, maintaining pedestrian access and providing access for taxis for drop-off and collection. We'll have a logistics manager to supervise the deliveries, but also between the contractor and the consultants and my own staff, we will have dedicated stakeholder liaison officers who will be working throughout the project and will be on site. Wider comms to include ongoing liaison with the businesses in Foyle Street and other stakeholders, keeping the public informed through information sessions, putting up signage, social media, press releases and project updates. And opportunity, as mentioned before, for businesses to advertise on the hoarding, as well as the council, Mayor, for any of your events that be coming across, but we would state that our priority on the hoardings will be for the local businesses. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John, for that detailed presentation. Now, I do have, before I open it up to members for any question, comments that you probably all have, I would say, I'm going to open it up to the organisations and just invite them if they want to say anything or ask a question of John or whatever. So the first I have on the list is Jim Ratty. So Jim, if you want to.
Thank you, Mayor. Northern Ireland Water and Arup Design first came and met me in October 2022, and they introduced the scheme to me. At that stage, it was more conceptual because money wasn't in place to deliver it. But nonetheless, they wanted to get a feel for the street itself, the topography of the area, the demography of the area, and just the general business needs if they were moving into the street. I impressed upon them that day that wide stakeholder engagement was vitally, vitally important. And the fact that it was a main arterial route, especially for buses and their taxis, that it was going to be very complicated. So in February 2023, I was invited to a meeting over in the Water Service headquarters with lots of different officials. Those who are here today with me, some of them were here, and council representatives, city deal representatives, and utility representatives, I think, were there also. And again, at that meeting, some things were reiterated. One was, make sure you get your plan ready before you come and talk to people. There's no point going and talking, especially the businesses who could face business interruption without understanding their needs. Don't be coming with a half-baked plan that people would just go mad at and go crazy at. The second thing was we need to make sure we try and keep the buses in that area as well. A lot of traders depend on the flow of people and the footfall of people that go through that area with the buses being there. Third thing was vitally important to me, and that was the upset. And if Northern Ireland Water were going to be in the street for a year, the least we could expect is the street would be left back at a standard that's going to last for quite some time after that. And it wouldn't be, let's go on for a year, put all these works in place, and then maybe 6 months, a year afterwards, let's go and put a new public realm on the street, because that upset would just be intolerable for the businesses who are there. Since those meetings, as far back as October 2022 and 2023, there's been extensive consultation, and we were delighted to allow Northern Ireland Water and our design avail of our offices and indeed our staff to invite all the stakeholders from Foyle Street into clustered meetings, firstly, with those who were there doing the presentation, similar to what we've seen today. And the reason why I say clustered meetings, there's different needs, different businesses, different needs. There are also different issues with access. Some of the businesses face back onto the walls, and the only way they can get in is in through the front of the building. And other businesses, just, bars, have articulated our issue delivering things as well. And there's been a whole host of different iterations of the plan. It was going to be the whole street at the start. The traffic management team were saying we'll deliver at the bookend at the Lower Orchard Street and Shipquay Place. But when they came and seen it, and when we talked it through, they realised that just wasn't manageable. So by the time they came and met the traders, they had a very, very decent plan in place. Now, not all traders turned up that day, but our staff went out and knocked doors and brought those who weren't there in, and most of them did come in. Those that didn't come in, Northern Ireland Water visited them, and so did the staff in my office. We gave them questionnaires, and those questionnaires asked about deliveries. They asked about trading times, what were their busiest times, etc., etc., etc. And all that was fed back into the system. And it's all led to the plan that we see here today. And we had a meeting a few weeks ago in this building downstairs in the Whittaker Suite, where all the businesses came in, and we had a fantastic turnout of businesses that day. And from the businesses that I work with, and even some of them are on my board, and we had a meeting earlier on today, they all feel as though their needs have been taken into consideration. They're all fully aware that there could be upset during this, and if there is, the most important thing is that we work together to ensure that business continues. And one important aspect as well was the access and egress for taxis. As we know, in even time economy, we like to have a destination spot for taxis, and we work with North West Taxi Proprietors Association as well with that, and they get all the information out to the taxi owners. So I have to say it's been a pleasure working with John and his team. Probably one of the most comprehensive pieces of consultation we've ever been involved in, and the feedback from traders that I've got in particular has been very, very positive. One thing I would flag up, and it's not solely for Northern Ireland Water, it's important that all members understand that this work's going to take place at the same time as the Inner Wall City Public Realm project is going to take place. So it's going to be a very clustered arena during this space of time. The Inner Wall City Public Realm scheme will run from Bank Place, Union Hall Place, Magazine Street, Lower Magazine Street, Upper Society Street and Palace Street. But nonetheless, there will be a crossover of works. So there'll be an awful lot of things happening at that time. I have absolutely no doubt there are going to be upsets at that time, and we just have to commit to work together to deliver for the needs of the people who are trying to trade there and operate there. With Northern Ireland Water, we've got that commitment, and I have no doubt with DFC and with the contractors on site in Inner Wall City, Public Realm will get the same. So I've been very, very pleased and happy to work with John and his team.
Thank you, John. Can I now ask the representatives from DFI, Mr. Daniel Healy and Declan McBride, if they want to make any contribution?
Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate in DFI the consultation that's been had with NIW and the way that they've engaged in the planning of these works. DFI roads stand ready to respond to any traffic management issues that may arise as the works are carried out and then they evolve. And we're happy to work with NIW and any other stakeholders to mitigate the potential traffic management disruption that these works will cause as little as possible, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I now ask Tony McDade from Translink?
I'll apologise to John. I think we were his most difficult client to work with now during this project, but the guys, they were excellent, your team, very accommodating, very flexible for us. So just for a wee bit of clarity, the current Foyle Metro services that operate in Foyle Street will be moving inside the depot, and the Ulster Bus services that are currently inside the depot will be moving into the car park. So Gold Line services and Foyle Metro inside the depot, Ulster Bus rural services will be across the way in the car park. Okay.
Odrin Dunn, was it Derry?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, thanks for the comprehensive presentation. And the critical thing for us, I suppose, has been the communication around all of this and giving us the timelines that we can communicate, particularly with the non-local traffic potential. We're thinking of international coach tour operators that come in and use the city so that they're well briefed in advance of arriving, and really any impact that that would have on their egress of their passengers in the city centre, and any provision for additional locations for set down should they be lost with Foyle Street disappearing. Obviously protecting the Guildhall side of the Guildhall and Water Street, which currently have set down right close to the location of Foyle Street. I suppose going forward, obviously keeping everything under review and how the traffic management works in the city centre. I suppose nobody will know until it comes into place. The one thing to flag, I suppose, from previous experiences around key events and what your plans would be during when the city is at peak capacity and there is critical amounts of traffic in the city centre, and would there be plans to look at those days and the workings on those days and build that into timelines? So, for example, not working peak on 31st of October during Halloween, and maybe not doing very much on the 1st of November when there's nothing really happening. So that you would build in some critical timelines with some of the key events would probably assist in the delivery of the project to meet the needs of increased visitor numbers into the city centre. But I'm really happy with the communication throughout, and we just hope that continues throughout the process as it kicks off. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Odrin, can I now ask Anna Doherty from the Chamber of Commerce?
Thanks very much, Mayor. And just to say thank you for inviting me here to represent the wider business community in this. Just to say, really to echo Jim's words already, I've been involved closely by NI Water in discussions around these proposals, and they've been very responsive to comments and feedback made by myself and other stakeholders here. Listened to all the points raised and returned with what I believe is a viable proposal. I believe this plan will alleviate most of the pain for the businesses cited on Foyle Street, but perhaps not everything, by offering provision for deliveries and reasonable access, and it'll also allow for the smooth flow of deliveries into the Foyleside shopping centre. Additionally, there should be minimal disruption to traffic flowing off the dual carriageway towards the walled city. So just to applaud NI Water for your persistence, really, in seeking the best case scenario in what is undeniably a difficult situation. Car park closures will certainly impact on businesses and travel into the city generally. So it's imperative that the public transport systems are as efficient and effective as possible to offer viable alternatives. In terms of the impact the work will have on future economic development in the city, we believe that these major upgrades to the water main and waste and rainwater sewage aren't only necessary, but they're long overdue. Planning applications, as you said, John, have been held back due to the lack of capacity in the water infrastructure. And there's a real critical need to fill this gap in capacity for that to be remediated and to move towards the level of economic development we know we've got potential for here. With the city deal projects and public realm moving on and the growth of the university prioritised under the Economy Minister, there's going to be increasing pressure on the economic infrastructure to be fit for purpose, including waste and water treatments. And the logistics of any upgrades need to be really carefully programmed at every stage, and the business community kept well informed of planned closures to minimise the immediate impact, but more importantly, to provide context for explaining the need for such actions for the greater good. So, but thank you for the communication standards that you have set here, and certainly would hope to be able to use that further for future projects as well.
That's now Paul not from DFC.
Thank you, Mayor. I think Jim's stolen a bit of my thunder there. So my update was going to be in terms of the Inner Wall City Public Realm. So I did do a presentation to the Environment and Regeneration Committee 2 weeks ago. So some of the members there will have heard what I said then. But yeah, we are due to go on site on that project, which as Jim says, will go from behind the Millennium Forum, along Bank Place, Union Hall Place, up Magazine Street and then Society Street and Palace Street. At the same time, we have been in talks with NI Water for the last couple of years. In fact, some of the works that were done in Bank Place were through that consultation, so that they did those works before we came on site, so they wouldn't have to come back afterwards. So we've been talking, our contractor's fully aware of it. I'm just out of a progress meeting with them. He's doesn't see us causing much problem with each other. We have a natural boundary in the city walls. We will have to do a traffic management plan, which has been drafted at the minute, and will have to be signed off by DFI, as will the NI water schemes. So those two traffic management plans will need to talk to each other, obviously. But look, we have been engaging, yes, as everyone's saying, with the best will in the world, there will be some disruption to traders, but it's about minimising that disruption. Okay, thank you.
Thank you all very much. Now I'm going to open it up to members now. So first on my list is Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll declare I'm not a city councillor to start, so I'm coming at this perhaps with a different viewpoint. My first issue would be with regard to the businesses, no matter what, and by the way, congratulations, fantastic groundwork has been done, preparation. But businesses are going to be impacted. And I know if I was one of the businesses, I would be contacting LPS with regard to my rates. And I'm just wondering, have NI Water alerted perhaps LPS to this potential? The issue has also been mentioned about the, I suppose, cacophony of works that are going to be going on in the city, and the entire city and businesses are going to be affected. So, perhaps businesses will be looking at that as an avenue as well. The point of view of myself coming into town to do work in the city, which has basically come to this chamber for meetings, etc., as opposed to visiting the businesses in town, but there are those who do it. There are those who are coming in for events. For some time, there has been a desire that park and rides would be established. And I think in areas where that, now this is beyond your remit, I'm admitting that, but the issue of park and ride, there's a car park sitting out Drumahoe there. Could it not be utilised during this period of time? Could the authorities not say, well, we'll do something there? Could something be done on the new buildings end, on the Carrigan's end? Something done between TransLink and the authorities to take the transport, take the cars out of the city during this period when there's going to be a heck of a lot going on. But as I say, that's beyond this particular scheme. So the park and ride. And one final one that I have noted, the street here, I'm not sure what it's called, is one way. The buses coming out of the temporary bus facility, will they be allowed to turn and go up Shipquay Street as they do at present coming out of Foyle Street? They can turn and go up Shipquay Street as well as coming out to the embankment. So will they be allowed coming out of the temporary to go up Shipquay Street? Is that remaining one way? So that's going to be quite a diversion for buses that would normally use that particular route. Thank you.
But there's a number of questions there, but what I am, if those who want to or can answer those questions, if they can just take a wee list, and we'll go back to that at the end of members' contributions. So next on the list, I have Christopher.
Good man, and a huge thanks to everybody that attended today. And what's apparent is that there's been extensive consultation as part of this, and it's only right that there has been, because as has been pointed out, this is a main thoroughfare. It was always going to be extremely challenging to carry out the work of this scale at this location. To overcome those challenges or to minimise the disruption, consultation was going to be key, and it's really encouraging that consultation has taken place at a really early stage, and it's really encouraging that NI Water have listened as part of that consultation and have changed the approach. They accommodate the views of those that took part in the consultation. So I want to thank you for that element of it. And I know whilst this is inevitably going to cause huge disruption, and it's much needed and it's vital, and others have alluded to that. We need to see our infrastructure in this in this city and district upgraded. And it is long beyond a matter of urgency. So this is really welcome to see this taking place. We understand that there's going to be a huge amount of pain, but as others have alluded to, it's overdue. So that's a positive element of it. We did touch on the public realm, and I know we've got plans ourselves as council. They do major public realm works as part of the city deal, and we don't want to be in a situation where this work's completed in what 16 months time, and then council come in to carry out a scheme shortly afterwards. So I would be keen to understand and learn more about that any coordination between council city deal team and NI Water as part of this works. They see if it's any way practical at all. They deliver some of that public realm as part of this work. And maybe as a question to Tony, we understand the challenges, and one of the challenges from businesses in Foyle Street is deliveries. Is there any prospect at all from a TransLink perspective? Could the current bus depot, could access be gained to businesses for deliveries via the bus depot? It seems logical from my perspective, but there may be logistical reasons why it can't be. But if there's major works being carried out outside of business in Foyle Street, would it be possible to utilise the bus depot to accommodate those deliveries? But again, just finally, Mayor, just to thank NI Water and all the stakeholders that have taken part in the consultation. It's long overdue. It's badly needed. But we know that it's going to be challenging in terms of delivery. So and what's demonstrated within this chamber is that they overcome those challenges. It's essential that people work together, and that partnership approach has been apparent throughout this presentation anyway. So no, thanks, Mayor.
So Councillor Boyd.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I'll keep it fairly brief. I do have a couple of questions. I think my colleagues will probably have a few questions, but just on behalf of the SDLP, can I thank you all for the work that you have done on this so far? And I do emphasise so far because clearly there's going to be quite a few challenges as this progresses. But I suppose the thing we have to be realistic about is that this is an upgrade of an infrastructure system that's 100, possibly even a little bit more than 100 years old. So it's only realistic that that has to be addressed at some point. You have to crack eggs and make omelets, and sometimes, you know, if there's no pain, there's no gain. So I think we all understand that and we appreciate that. And the liaison with local business owners is clearly key to how this all progresses with as little pain as there possibly can be for them. But also, and I suppose one of the questions I do have, whoever thinks they can answer it best, please feel free to do so. But I think we're, you know, potentially and probably inevitably initially, you'll be looking at some teething problems. And I was just wondering if there were people who were, you know, a point of contact for triage of the teething problems that might come about for business owners, for pedestrians, for taxi drivers, etc., etc. So that's one question. But I do know, of course, as the weeks and months go on here now, communication is going to be key to keeping people informed, keeping as many people informed as we possibly can. So I similarly had an observation akin to what Alderman Hussey was talking about, and I suppose the straightforward question I was really going to ask in relation to that, Mayor, was, is Shipkey Street going to be a one-way street where the traffic only travels down it and then down Whittaker Street? I don't know the answer because I didn't hear it in any of the presentations, or maybe they were there and I just didn't hear it. So that was one of the questions. And then one of the other matters, and I didn't hear it mentioned, and Mayor, you'll know this, or anybody who's ever in and around this building knows, some of the Inishowen bus services also leave from Whittaker Street, and have they been considered in going forward? Perhaps the TransLink representative will know that. I'm sure they speak to each other. And I suppose that's really the ones that I had, but very key to this. And I think it's important that we get out there as quickly as possible, all of you and anyone, to basically assure people that, you know, there'll be as little pain associated with this as humanly possible. But I think that triage for the teething is going to be something that's key at the start, because I would imagine a project like this will have some teething issues, and maybe timeframes might slip, because who knows what's underneath the ground and what might come up when you dig it up. That river down there might come up. And one other observation, and anybody who's ever got caught a bus in Foyle Street will know it. I think key to this as well is it might actually address some of the stench that you get at particular times of the year. And I think we would all welcome that. So that's kind of all I have, Mayor, but just to thank everybody again for coming in and indulging us this afternoon with what might seem obvious questions, and maybe there are simple answers to them as well. So I'll leave it there, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Alderman McMorris.
Thank you, and thank you, John, for the comprehensive presentation today. It was very informative, and the imagery on your presentation was really, really good and really, really clear. I know I was at the CCI meeting before that, and some of the business that will be affected was there. So it was really great that they were able to be complimentary about the consultation process, and they feel as if they've been listened to and their concerns has been alleviated. Most of the questions that I was going to ask has already been asked, but just one wee question. I see, do you know, in regards to the barrier system that's coming into Foyle Street, and I know you're doing it in 2 phases, so both ends. I see that there's a loading bay there and a taxi bay, but I was just mindful about disability access. Do you know, like people going into the businesses or whatever who may have disabilities and, you know, blue badges or whatever. Is there, you know, access for them in there? Yeah. Okay. Now, that was an observation. I just wanted to clarify, but thank you.
Thank you. And Fergal.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to John and everybody else that has spoken this evening. John, you mentioned one of your sentences about emergency services. May I ask if there's been direct interaction with the fire service and NIAS? Will the barrier that you talk about, will that be crewed 24/7? And I know we have a big river beside us, but will the water supply and the fire hydrants in this area, will that be disrupted during this phase of works? And the obvious reason I'm asking is to ensure public safety, property safety, but also the safety of the workers that are involved on the site as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Connor?
Thanks, Mayor. And like everyone else, thanks very much for the presentation and the other contributions. It's just a quick question for my understanding. In terms of the infrastructure under Foyle Street, how wide an area of the city does that service? Obviously, these works are critical, and maybe there's not an answer to this, but just how crucial these works will be, how much of the city is served actually by the infrastructure that's located there.
And the final speaker that I have on the list is Councillor Riley.
Thanks, Mayor, and for giving my cokey voice. But like others, thanks very much for the presentation that we've got this afternoon. Building on Alderman Hussey's questions about the park and ride, that was something that I was thinking of, and I suppose attached with that, it's the opportunities for people to buy their tickets and purchase them off-site from Foyle Street, and what availability there would be to do that at park and rides. Attached with that is also, I suppose, the impact on trains and more people choosing to use the train to travel on public transport to and from the city. So I'm wondering if TransLink have any thoughts on those issues. In relation to the car parks, I suppose, is a question for council officers. If we are losing Foyle Street car park, what efforts are being put in place to make sure that Victoria Market and Bishop Street are going to be at capacity and maximised? And are we talking to others like the Executive Office about the car park that's available at the other end of the Peace Bridge? So, Mayor, there's a few questions that occurred to me. But as I said, thanks to everyone who's came in to present this afternoon.
Okay, so there is a number of questions there, and I know, John, they're not all for yourself, so I will just address the team one by one again, and you can come in at the questions you feel that you can answer. But just before we do that for myself, it is very clear that there has been great consultation throughout. And I just hope that that continues. I would ask on behalf of council that if there are any major unforeseen stuff uncovered or whatever, and it's going to have an impact on the timeline or whatever, that you come back to the chamber to address the members regarding that. As for the public realm, I do think that it would be great if this could be coordinated. And if we've DFI here and we've DFC, and I know there has been a question asked by Councillor Jackson regarding that. I also know there has been preliminary discussions ongoing. But I think it should be prioritised given the work and the disruption that is going to go on that street. So it does need looked at, it does need done. So I think that a public realm scheme there would be crucial to finish off the works. And I suppose and this is a question, so whenever when the questions are coming back, you can answer it. You talked about planning applications and capacity, and I know one other councillor, Connor, more or less touched on it. What is this going to mean for this area? Sorry, there's just a wee. And will it do anything to alleviate flooding? And the final thing I would be asking is that maybe if there was some sort of paper with preferred routes given out for motorists and pedestrians, I think that would be helpful too as well. So yeah, that's everything. So I'll start with you, John, and then I'll go over the team again. Thank you.
There's a significant number of questions, so I'll try and go through them all in order. And if any I can't answer, if the team can, and then we'll see if we've got everything at the end. Before we do go, the area that's served by the sewer, I would need to consult our networks and see the full extent of that. So if council are happy, we can come back with a written response on that one, because I wouldn't want to say something in the chamber here that is completely wrong. You'll pick up from my accent that I'm not a local, and I wouldn't want to make that error. We've done a lot of consultation to date. It's not finished, and I don't expect it to be finished until we are well off site and the project is completed and handed over. We need to talk and do information, as I mentioned in the presentation, sessions to the members of the public. We haven't done that yet, because if we couldn't get the car park, so we couldn't close the car park and sort out the income that the council would be losing, and then be able to do the amendments that TransLink needed, and then license that over to TransLink, this project wasn't going to go ahead. So we have a lot of stakeholder and public engagement that we know we need to do that we just couldn't get started yet, because we didn't want to go too early to notify the public. We will be doing that in the coming months. With regard to routes, we are looking at putting up information to allow cars, pedestrians know what alternatives there is for parking and how to access the local businesses. That will be ongoing. When I said pedestrians, I should have said disability access will be maintained at all times. I will check with my team, Councillor Heaney, about fire and services. I suspect we have. I will just ensure that, and we'll include that in the written response. We have touched on buses and other coaches. We'll continue to work with Visit Derry and identify other international operators and see what we can do there, if there's something that can be done in notifications for them. The contractor are an extremely experienced contractor, and they won't have a problem closing down works early on peak times for the council. Okay, they are used to going for the considered constructors scheme on other projects. So that would have been if you were working in the vicinity of a school at the time 11+ was being done, you would have stopped all of that work. So I can't see that an issue. I will relay that back and ensure that it's covered. Traffic management and stakeholder engagement are what we would classify as dynamic. We will be engaging with and continue with roads. Roads will be obviously working with DFC on the public realm. So my team will already know, but I will reinforce it with them, that our traffic management team will need to liaise with DFC to ensure that we look at the whole city holistically. I don't think we've alerted LPS, Councillor Hussey. We can mention it to them. I will say that's probably outside of my pay grade, but it is something that we can talk about. But with regard to the businesses, the reason we've put in so much stakeholder engagement and the fact that we have a logistics supervisor is to minimise the impact to the businesses as much as possible. And on that regard, there probably will be teething problems whenever we do go to site. I would be arrogant or naive or both to think if there wouldn't be. But that's the role of those stakeholder engagement team on site, to identify that and to work with our stakeholders and see if there's something different that we need to do. We won't know what we expose until we actually open it. We've had extensive maps back from the other key services, but I do suspect that some of their services will not be where they think they are, and therefore we will have to work around it. We believe the year will be comfortable, but if that does change, we will keep you informed and happy to come back and notify that. It's our intention to get out of out of Foyle Street as quickly as possible, and we won't be holding around. We will be maintaining, Councillor Leonard, the water main will be maintained at all times. Okay, so therefore the fire hydrants will be maintained. And when we bring a new section of the water main online, it will be fully tested, pressure tested, and made live only whenever everything is correct. So the fire hydrants is something that we would have to maintain automatically. And likewise, we'd be looking at maintaining the existing pressures that are on that main as well. With regard to the smell, the existing sewer is an egg-shaped brick construction. And there's a phrase in civil engineering and sewer design called self-cleansing. And self-cleansing is where its frictions and its gradient allow for all of the solids to be brought out of the sewer whenever it's in operation. The existing one is not self-cleansing. The new ones will be. On top of that, the new pipelines are PVC, so the surface is more smooth and less rough. So the likelihood of something settling out and causing the odour is removed. But one thing I would say is it's hugely important if the council can work with us. Most of the smell comes from fats, oils and greases and objects that are in our sewage system that shouldn't be there. And I know the council do a massive piece of work going out and inspecting fat traps, grease traps in businesses. That will be hugely vital going forward in Foyle Street. Park and ride, we can raise that with DFI roads. Again, I don't think we'll be able to do anything at this stage on the project, but we will, happy to discuss it further. There's nothing off the table or on the table at this stage. When consultations to continue, we will work with yourselves and with DFC with regard to public realm. If we can have something piggybacking on the back of us coming in while we're doing putting the car park back, no problem at all. Whether we'd be able to have something working while we're on Foyle Street, I don't know if that's possible, but again, it's something that we can discuss with the contractor. The contractor is very open to including everybody's wishes as much as possible. I believe I've covered everything that I can. If there's anything any of the others can, it'd be much appreciated to stop me talking, everybody. And if there's something that we haven't covered, we will bring it up. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Now I'm just going to go back to and I think Jim, you were first. If you want to.
Thank you again, Mayor. During the consultation process with the businesses, the idea of compensation obviously did come up. I know Northern Ireland Water have a way of adjudicating whether compensation is available, but the LPS issue came up as well. And from previous public realm schemes, I think Paul might remember this, when we had in 2009, 2010, Waterloo Place, Strand Road, Waterloo Street, Guildhall Square. LPS then gave us a rule of thumb that if a business could show that there's work taking place outside their premises that materially upsets their business flow for 1 full year, if they can show that they've lost business, that they would consider compensation. That was discussed at the stakeholder meetings, Derek. So Like we'd be very keen to stay on top of that and work with businesses on it. And just one final thing about the teething problems, John. My staff will be working very closely with John's staff and will be liaising very closely with the businesses at all times. So if there's ever any emergency or any need to get in touch with somebody super quick, the numbers will all be there and we'll be able to facilitate that. So that'll be there from day go.
Daniel and Declan.
Yeah, I suppose the main one that the main query that was raised there that maybe has a DFI and possibly a TransLink input would be the park and rides. The query about park and rides. DFI and TransLink work together on Network Projects Working Group to identify potential park and ride sites. The provision and location of these sites need to align with the emerging regional transportation strategy and the Northwest Transport Plan and the Regional Strategic Network Transport Plan, which all remain unpublished at the moment. So the timeframes for confirming and identifying park and ride sites in and around the city of Derry are pretty not established at the moment. From a temporary point of view, certainly if DFI can work with council and with NIW and TransLink to explore the possibility of providing additional services, then we're happy to work in conjunction with them.
Okay. Johnny?
Again, start park and ride. Funding's going to be the initial issue. They run, now, off the top of my head, figure to run a reasonable service to a park and ride, you're probably looking at 300k a year. Don't quote me on that one, that's a rough guess. The one currently, we only have one bus service which turns left out of Foyle Street and goes up Shipke Street. That's the Craigan service. That'll be getting diverted across William Street up the flyover and it'll turn right and continue on its route as normal. Deliveries, we did talk with John's team about deliveries. We're going to have around 300 services per day arriving and 300 departing from Foyle Street Bus Centre. To bring lorries and unfamiliar vehicles in the middle of it won't work. But NA Water have come up with a very good scheme for delivery, so I think everybody's pretty happy with it. Yep. Regarding the cross-border insurance services, we did identify the John's team early on, and I've no doubt they've contacted them. They contacted everyone else. Finally, the trains. The trains are pretty much running as many trains on that line as they can. So adding extra trains isn't an option really at the minute, because there's certain passengers and you can't really run much more than we currently have. And they're running on full size 6 sets currently as well. So there's not a lot of capacity there, but I'm not trains, I'm bus, but I will talk to the train guys and ask them to monitor things if there are any issues arise.
Thank you, Tony. Can I now ask Audrey? Sure.
No further comment, Mayor. I think everything's been covered by John and the relevant speakers. Thank you.
Anna, have you any further comments?
Not really, Mayor, other than just to say that certainly Jim's probably the best point of contact for any kind of triage that might be, but we can add any support that might be needed. And again, just to reiterate that, to get that messaging out to the wider business community, who are obviously public themselves as well, you know, we're happy to help as much as we can with TransLink and yourselves.
And Paul.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of points. First, on the public realm, we have been liaising with DFI and with NI Water and Council on it, and we'll continue these conversations. Just to flag up, though, we are putting £1 million into the Harbour Square redevelopment this year. We're putting £5 million under the Inner Wall project, and there's a £7 million Shaban public realm project that's working its way through the approvals at the minute. So it's going to be tight, and you're all fully aware of the budget position in the executive at the minute. In terms of the liaison on the ground, Councillor Boyle, our contractor is FP McCann, so for the Inner Wall scheme, They will have a liaison officer who has worked very well in the past with the businesses through the Guildhall Square and Waterloo Square. So we're confident that there'll be somebody on the ground for that.
I know Stephen wants to come on the car parking issues.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And just on Councillor Riley's point, and I did raise this at the tail end of business and culture. In relation to car parks, there are other works that are going to disrupt at various points in time other car parks, not for the length that this is, not to the extent that this is, but obviously as Paul had mentioned, the inner city public realm scheme, Society Street car park will obviously remain a car park, but at a point in time, works will be done to it. So the car park there'll be no parking, and then it'll be put back to carbon. So that will cause disruption. The contractor needs a yard, and the bulk of the material will be down at Fort George, but he needs a yard close to the inner city public realm. So part of Bishop Street, and that was brought to the business culture as well, will be used for the contractor just at one end. So there will be disruption there. And we're currently talking to NI Water on a smaller scheme that will relate to Victoria Market, which will take about 20 spaces out. I don't have all the dates for all of those yet, because obviously we're just working with the AFC on the contractor schedule, and I'm only just meeting with NI Water to discuss Victoria Market. We will bring a paper to Business and Culture with all of the dates, this and all of the others, all in one package, so that we can see where the correlation is and where the disruption is going to be. But there will be disruption to that, and I have started a discussion with the Executive Office, because this will impact on people who will want to park and cross the bridge and so on, so that they need to be aware of what's going on. And in relation to all of this, we're pulling together a meeting of a lot of the partners that you see here to try and coordinate that message, to get it out to businesses, to make sure that we are ahead of this, to try and get as much information out, because when all of this comes together, and as Paul mentioned, even the works are going outside in relation to Harbour Square and the Factory Girl sculpture, that will cause disruption to pedestrians. It will all be coalescing at the same time. So the more messaging we get out, the better. So we'll be working on that, and we'll be bringing a paper with all the various dates to Business and Culture.
Thank you, Stephen. Now I'm going to open this up to members again. Are you content that your questions have been answered? But if you're not, or if you want to make any further comments, go ahead. Now I have two councillors on the list already, and I'll put yourself down now. So Councillor Boyd.
Mayor, look here, I apologise. The PA system in here sometimes proves very difficult for me, and if you're soft spoken, I find it quite tough to hear people. So if the answer came, I apologise. But one of the questions I did ask was in relation to traffic management, Mayor, and in relation to what the plan was for Shipkey Street onto Whittaker Street. Is that going to be one way, or will it be two way? I'm not sure I heard an answer to that, but I can see the difficulties that might exist in trying to send traffic up Shipkey Street. I don't know just don't know what the answer is, but clearly there are businesses on Shipkey Street who obviously want as much traffic parking outside their door as they can get. So it's just a matter of, is there a thought or a plan for the traffic management on that street and onto the side of this building as well? I don't think I heard that answer.
Okay, Alderman Gay.
Thanks, Mayor. And just further on what John was saying there about basically park and ride schemes and the use of Shipkey Street. Now, I spoke to Tony before about this whenever the public realm was moved, and I think am I right in saying it's because of the size of the new electric buses that they're trying to keep them out of the city set within the walls? There's too much size-wise. So basically, what I'm asking, we're talking there about a park and ride scheme. Do council own, or maybe not own, but have they been given the land yet of the park, or the old park and ride out in Drumahoe? I know that obviously it's part of the Peace Plus thing. The Tully Alley and Currynearn, they sort of changed those lands. But I was always aware that the car park was going to be taken over by council, not to be used, but that part of land. Has anything came of that, or could it be if an agreement was reached with TransLink, could something be worked there?
Alderman McMorris.
Sorry, it was just in relation to, I'm not sure if it was John that raised it, but just conscious, no, the barriers is going to be on Foy Street. And I think it was him that asked a question about like, would they be manned 24 hours a day? I'm just conscious, no, the Blackbird would be like open late or whatever, do you know, and yeah, would they have access through at least a closing time, or is it a cut-off point, or just?
Right, I'm going to take the first questions first, and I think DFI would be the best place to answer that question.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Boyle, your query regarding the one-way system, by default, my understanding is when Foyle Street is closed, traffic won't be able to progress and turn left and go up Shipquay Street. But the traffic still will be able to come down from the Diamond and go through and out onto the embankment. I hope that clears that matter up. Thank you.
Will that be clear to motors?
Mayor,
So that means it has a one-way system, is that what we're hearing?
At times, when phase 2 and 3, when Foyle Street is closed, then the traffic coming off the embankment would have to go up Orchard Street and round and get up onto Ferrigy Street, but they'll not be able to drive along Foyle Street, and therefore they won't be able to gain access through Shipquay Arch and up in.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask council officers to address the next question.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Members, in relation to the former Park and Ride site in Drumahoe, certainly, as you know, DFI had leased that for a period of time from YMCA. That YMCA actually own that land, and as you've discussed, that it may well form part of a future project if it's funded by Peace Plus, but council wouldn't haven't taken over the land or have no plans to until such times as we would have funding in place to be able to deliver the wider project. So at the minute that land still remains with YMCA. So but certainly we can have further conversations. Again, the other Park and Ride is now fully operational, and any buses, if there was some sort of a temporary scheme that could operate, it could operate from the further Park and Ride scheme.
Okay, John, I think the barrier question for yourself.
The barrier won't be 24/7. We have been working with taxi companies with regard to the arrangements, knowing about the closing times of the local establishments. If council are happy, I will include that in a written response along with the maps, and we can close it out that way and get confirmation on that. It's probably something, Councillor McNorris, that is still under review and it'll be working itself away. This is still very dynamic, but I will get that confirmed. But at the moment, it's definitely not 24/7.
Okay, members, I have no more indicated speakers. So I just want to thank yourself, John, and all our contributors for coming to the meeting this afternoon. And hopefully everything will go smoothly. And yeah, but if not, you know, I think it'd be wise just to come back here again so we can all hear it. So thank you all very much, and thank you, members.